Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So we're continuing our Tajweed classes here. This is going to be officially class number 4, inshallah. We're going to try to complete the Tajweed course in, inshallah, 12 weeks, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to do that, inshallah. Okay, just a quick review. What are the Makhārij that we covered? Can someone tell me real quickly?
So we covered the, you want the letters or the positions, articulation positions as well?
Yeah, so if you can tell me the Makhārij and then tell me which letters come under those Makhārij, inshallah, that's fine. Yeah.
So for the lower part of the throat, we covered ha and hamza.
Okay.
Middle of the throat, we covered ayn and ha. And for the upper throat, we covered ghain and kha.
Good. So that's the Makhārij of the throat. Very good. Okay, keep going.
And then we covered the back of the tongue, touching the lower upper soft palate,
Yep.
which is for qaf, and for the same place, but touching the hard palate, which is kaf.
So that's the back of the tongue, correct?
That's correct. Sorry. Yeah, the back of the tongue touching the soft and the hard palate, qaf and kaf.
Good. And then we covered the middle of the tongue, which was?
Sheen, Jim. Yeah.
All right, mashallah. Very good. So how many letters is that? So 3 from, so okay. So, someone says my first class. That's fine, inshallah. So try to follow along as much as you can. We're going to go ahead. I mean, obviously we have the recordings, but we're going to continue, inshallah. You can always catch up with the recordings, okay? So we have the recordings on the website. And okay, so we have 11 letters, correct? I'm just going to type them out here real quickly. Or actually, you know what? Let's do this here. Can you guys see the book here?
Yes.
So we covered, Tajweed, the Isti'ādah, Basmala. We did a few letters. Alhamdulillah. It's good. Okay. So we're going to move on here now. This is going to be now Makhraj number 8, right? So we did Makhraj 7, which was Jim, Sheen, and Ya. Okay. So now we're moving on here, which is Makhraj number 8. Now, before we move on here, we need to cover some anatomy of the teeth. Okay, it's not too difficult. I think we did this before, but let's go over it quickly. So we have here, we have the wisdom teeth at the back. Okay, then we have the 3 molars. We have a premolar. We have the canine. We have these 2 central incisors, and that's pretty much it. Okay, that's all your anatomy. So if you remember the anatomy of the tongue, all we needed to know in terms of Tajweed, the tip of the tongue, the top of the tongue, the side, the middle, and the back. Okay. In terms of the teeth, this is what you need to know. Okay, because we're going to be referring to this when we explain the Makhārij of the letters. Okay. Okay, so Makhraj number 8, it is the side or the edge of the tongue when touching the upper molars, left or right. It can also be articulated from both sides at once. And this is the letter Lad. It comes from here. The left side is said to be the easiest, followed by the right. And from both sides at the same time, it's the most difficult. Okay. So let me see if I can do something here. Can you guys see this? What do you guys see right now on the web page?
Teeth and their names.
You just see the book here, right? Okay, okay. I thought you were looking at it. Because I'm trying to open something up here. Just give me 1 minute here. Just so you guys can see a better visual in the other book. So the other book has some images, and both of the books are available. Okay, so you can it's sent in the chat. You can download them from there. Inshallah. You guys see this book here now?
Yes.
The second book, right? Okay. Too far. Okay, so we did Wasatul Lisan, which is the middle of the tongue, right? We did the Jim, Sheen, and Ya. And now we're doing Hafatul Lisan, okay, which is the side of the tongue. And it has 2 letters, so it has the Lad and the Lam, okay? So here at the bod. Can you guys see this image here?
Yes.
Okay, look here. So this is the bod here, okay? So you're using the side of the tongue here. Now, it's said that it can be pronounced either from one side or the right or left, or it can be pronounced from both touching the upper molars. Okay, so you see here, you see the molars at the back. So remember, this is the central incisors, the canine, premolars, molars, you know, it's wisdom tooth. So you look here at the very back. So using the back teeth, okay? And basically the top of the tongue is touching this here, okay? Now, either you can pronounce it from the right, from the left, or both, okay? So if you do just from the left, for example, it's going to be mod, or the right rather, mod, mod. Now look at my mouth very carefully. You can probably see my picture there. It's very important, and this is a common mistake. People use the front of their mouth here, okay? They say this is one of the most difficult letters, and there's a lot of discussion around this. You do not want to use the tip of your mouth, okay? So some people use right here. Some people use this part right here. They use this, okay? So they use this and they touch this here and they say bod, bod. It's kind of sounds similar, right? Bod, bod, but it's wrong. Rather, you want to read it from where? You want to read it from the side, okay? Very important, you want to read it from the side. So from here, okay? From here. And you'll notice the sound. Of course, if someone's studied Tajweed, they'll notice the difference, okay? Now, again, point number 2 is you do not want to do any involvement from the tip of your, or the mouth, okay? Meaning, when you're pronouncing from the sides here, you do not want to move the front of your mouth. So some people, they actually do pronounce it from the side, but they also use the front of their mouth, okay? So they say something like this, bod, bod. And the reason for this is because they're trying too hard here. Now, just keep a note here, and I've mentioned this many times, is that when you're reading any letter, it's very important that there is no movement going on from any other part of the mouth, okay? There may be some slight movement, which is normal, but let's say you're saying lod and you're moving your lips, you're saying lod, okay? So that's obviously going to be incorrect. So try to keep your mouth stationary. So read it with a fatha, law, right? Law, so you're not saying law, for example, okay? And you hear how it sounds, law, mod. There's a little sound before it. There's like a sound before it, okay? And we're gonna study that later. What is that sound in sifat? So remember, we have Makhārij and we have sifat. Makhārij is where the letter comes out from. This is what we're studying. Sifat is the quality of the letter. So once we get into the quality of the letter, you're going to realize why there is that sound, okay? There is an extending sound. It's called istiqala. So we'll get into that. So again, one more time, lod. If you're pronouncing it correctly, it's going to make this sound, okay? So it's not going to be lod. That means you're reading it wrong, okay? Because there is an extension from this tongue. It's extending from here all the way here. Lod, lod, okay? While we're here, we're going to do the lam. So we'll go down here. So remember, let's go to the definition of lod. It was the side of the tongue and the molars, very easy. The lam is the side plus the tip of the tongue, okay? Or you can just say, basically, so lam is coming from the side of the tongue, okay? It's coming from the side of the tongue here, and it's using, so you have all this area, and it's touching here from canine to canine, right? It says, sorry, from premolar to premolar, okay? So noon is from canine to canine. So again, these 3 are the molars, right? 1, 2, 3, and then you have the premolars here. So lod was up here, okay? And lam is here. Now, notice that lam has a lot of area, okay? So you can pronounce it from here, you can do it from here, you can do it from here. However, you do not want to be doing something like this, lam, right? Moving the front of your mouth. Again, like I said, it's very important. Any letter, you're going to keep the mouth stationary, lam. But you can pronounce it from here, you can do it from here, okay? Lam, lam, quite easy. Just make sure you don't make it heavy and say a lam, for example. Okay, let's go back here now. So it was the side or edge of the tongue when touching the upper molars, left or right. It can be articulated from both sides at once. The lod is pronounced from here. The left side is said to be the easiest, followed by the right side, and both sides is the most difficult. Now this is according to your own anatomy, right? As my teacher said, Sometimes you may find even the right side to be easier, okay? Like me, I find the right side to be easier, and I usually read it from the right side, okay? So try to do the left. If you find it difficult, try to do the right. And both sides is very tough, okay? So try to work on that. Now, again, when you're reading from the side, do not use the tip of your tongue and try to move it to the right side and say Lord or something. No, it's the back of the tongue. Your mouth is stationary. Lord, Lord. If there's some movement, try to hold your, try to hold your face and just hold it and say Lord. And inshallah, with practice, you'll get it. Number 9. This is Makhārij number 9. The anterior sides of the tongue. So the front side of the tongue, as we saw in the diagram, and the tip of the tongue when touching the gums of the teeth extending from one premolar to the other, the lam is pronounced from here. Number 10, the tip of the tongue when touching the gums of the teeth extending from one canine to the other, the noon is pronounced from here. Okay, so what's the difference? Lam is premolar to premolar, and noon is from canine to canine. It's very simple. So let's go back here. So now we're talking about the tip of the tongue, taraful lisan. Okay, so we did the side, we did the middle, we did the side, we did the back. Now we're doing the tip. So tip of the tongue and the gums of canine to canine, you have the noon. So look here, very simple. So basically, as you can see, the makhraj or the space of the makhraj is getting slower, is getting less and less, right? You have lad here, lam here. Now you're just using this part here. And the ra, you'll see you're only using the tip. So look here, we have the noon. So from canine to canine. Quite easy, noon, the N sound in English, okay, very easy. All right, number 11, the tip of the tongue and the top of the tip. Okay, so listen to that again. The tip of the tongue as well as the top when touching the gum of the upper, central, and lateral incisors. The ra is pronounced from here. There's a note, most scholars are of the opinion that the tongue touches the gums of the upper, central incisors and the makhraj of the noon and the ra. Okay, so again, one more time. The tongue touches the gums of the upper central incisors and the makhraj of the noon and the ra. Okay, so it says here, the upper and lateral incisors, but some scholars say, if someone has their mic unmuted, please mute it. Okay, so taraful lisan, this is the ra. You have the tip plus the top of the tongue and the gums of incisor to incisor. Okay, so look here. What does that mean? So you're using the tip of the tongue. Remember, all of these letters are using the tip of the tongue because this is the side. It ends at the lam. Every other letter here is the tip of the tongue. I mean, not every other letter, but the letters we're working on now. So you're using the tip, but you're also using the top. That's why it's a little bit more thicker, meaning you're using the tongue here, but you're using the top. So the tip of the tongue and the top, okay? And you're using it, and it's pressing against the gums here of the where? Of the central of the incisor. So incisor to incisor, okay? So remember, these two are the central incisors. These are the lateral two. So it's from the lateral here and it's pressing here, okay? So using the tip as well as the top, all. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a second and I'm going to wait for any questions, or if you guys have any questions, you can ask. Is everything clear? If there's no questions, that means everything is clear, right? If you guys understand everything, just enter 1 in the chat box, or you can just say yes, or just enter 1. If you don't understand, or if you have a question, just type 2 in the box. Okay, I'm getting 7. Okay, someone said, can I summarize, please? Sure. Let's go back to a diagram. We'll use this one here. Okay. So look here. This is the bod, okay? So you're using the sides of the tongue, touching the molars, okay? Either the right side, the left side, or both. That's the bod. That's one makhraj. Then we did the lam. So again, you're using the side of the tongue, but it's extending to the tip, okay? So it's from premolar. This is premolar to premolar. So this would be the lam here. So let me write it here. Let me draw it rather. So here, for example, this would be the lam here. Okay, from premolar to premolar. Then we did the noon. Okay, so it's from canine to canine. Okay, so it's getting smaller and smaller. And then the ra is just the tip here. Okay, so it's just from central incisor. So this area here, the ra. So it's getting smaller and smaller, basically. Okay, so remember those terminologies. Okay, so you have here, you have the side, right side of the tongue, which is a bud. Side is with the molars. That's a bud. Okay. Then you have the premolars. Okay, premolar to premolar, which is the lam. Okay. Then we have the noon, canine. Sorry, one second. Canine to canine. And then we have lateral incisor. So canine to canine is noon. Okay. And then the ra is lateral. Okay, so sides you have bod, premolar lam, canine noon, and lateral is ra. What is my name? My name is Saud. I think you can see it right there. It's written there. Okay. So we have these four. Now let's go back to this diagram here. Sorry, let's go back to the other book here quickly. So if you look here, so molars, this is bod, premolars to premolar is the lam, canine to canine is the noon, and then lateral incisors is the ra. Okay, I hope that made sense now. So let's move on here.
Sorry, just a quick follow-up on that one. So
Sure.
it made sense, the theory, but in terms of the dad pronunciation, I'm finding it difficult to sense, if you like, how the side of the tongue actually touches the molar teeth. So I suppose when we practice it, it will probably make sense.
Who is this speaking?
Saleh.
Okay, Brother Saleh, are you able to open your camera and just read the bod now, or do you want to do it privately later?
Unfortunately, I don't have camera on this, but I'm happy to read it.
Okay, that's fine. So you can read it. Say the bod, yeah.
So dad,
One more time.
dad, dad, dad.
Okay. And okay, so basically you're using the side of the tongue, okay? But what's happening here is the sifa is a little bit off. Okay, so it seems like the makhraj is right, but you're having some movement in the mouth when you're saying it. Okay, so one more time. Lod. Try to keep your mouth stationary and say lod.
Dad.
Okay, that's much better. Very good. But now
dad.
you're reading the lod, it's a little bit soft, okay? And we'll get into what that is, okay? The ra should be soft, but there is, once we get into the qualities, you'll understand more, inshallah. Now, of course, keep in mind here that it requires a lot of practice, right? It requires a lot of practice. And even the Arabs, right, they have difficulty with this letter. So don't expect to, just get it right away in the first lesson, right? Or even this is maybe your first time hearing, the definition of the lod and how it's pronounced. So, so it will take some time, inshallah. Perhaps, you can read it again live. You can try to have your camera and I'll try to guide you, okay?
Okay, thank
you. Yeah, of course. I mean, don't expect to, it's like learning any language. If I tell you right now, let's learn Chinese, let's learn Spanish or any other language. Okay, will you be able to get it right away? Obviously not. You'll have difficulties in the pronunciation, okay? But you're not gonna, go and cry about it and say, oh, I can't read this letter. No, what are you gonna say? It's a different language. It needs time. This is the same thing. It's gonna take time.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so let's get into makhraj number 12 now. So it's the tip of the tongue, again, the tip of the tongue, when touching the upper central incisors now, okay? We're talking about the two teeth at the top. At the gum line, okay, the gum line, the ta, dal, and ta are pronounced from here. Let's go back here. And you have this book here, so you can refer to this as well. And of course, I've sent you another link. I mean, it should be there on the website. Sheikh Ayman Suwaid, he's basically recited all of the letters, and you can listen to them, or someone has compiled the recitation, and you can just listen to them again and again, inshallah. Okay, because one of the ways you're going to get better, of course, is by practicing. Okay, we can get practice every time we recite Surah Al-Fatiha's last ayah. Yeah, of course, you have غير المغضوب, you have the lads at the end. That's good, yeah. And you can try to practice when you're reciting the Quran, of course, try to implement it. But for now, try to do your best. And the reason I say this is because when I taught this, a while back, a student came to me about 1 week later and said, I can't read the Surah Al-Fatiha. I don't go past Surah Al-Fatiha in my prayer. I said, why? He said, because I have to keep repeating the last ayah again and again. Okay, so you don't want to reach that stage. Okay, he's saying, I have doubts, am I reading the Bad correctly or not? No, in the prayer, just do your best, read it once and move on. Okay, outside the prayer, practice it 1,000 times. Go in front of a mirror and try to do it again and again. Okay, so don't get shaitan to bring whispering, bring whispering. That's what he wants, right? Okay, so we have 3 letters here. It's the tip of the tongue and the gum line. So you can see it's bolded here, the gum line, okay? The gum line of the central incisors. What is the central incisors? These ones here, the top 2, okay, the top 2 here. So we have ta, ta, and dal coming from here, but where? It's touching the gum line, okay? So you can see this here, this line here is perfect. So you have the teeth, okay? And then you have, the roof of the mouth above it, and then you have the gum line, okay? And you can get 3 letters from here, ta, dal, ta. Now keep in mind, again, do not try to say ta. Very common mistake. People will round their mouth and say ta. That's wrong. If you need to, hold your mouth, ta, dal, ta, ta. It shouldn't be ta. If there's slight movement, I mean, it should be okay. But of course, you're going to try to achieve that level where there's no movement, okay? Okay, talaful lisan. Now we're doing the tip of the tongue and the tip of the central incisors, okay? Let's go back here, the definition. So you have the tip of the tongue when touching the upper central incisors at the gum line. Okay, we did that one. Now, number 13, the tip of the tongue when touching the edge of the upper central incisors. We have the tha, dhal, and dha. They're pronounced from here. So one more time, the tip of the tongue and the tip of the central incisors. Okay, what does that mean? So look here. Very simple. If you use your, right now, right, the top 2 teeth, we're talking about under it. So if you stick your tongue out, tha, dhal, so it's basically under the top teeth, right? And your tongue is basically sticking out. Okay, so that's basically what this image is showing you. Now, this is something not mentioned in the book, so you might want to make a note of this. Okay, so this is going to help you in your recitation. The order from out to in. So out means which letter are you sticking out the most, and which letter, which letter are you using when you stick your tongue out the most, and which letter are you pronouncing when you stick your tongue out the least? Okay, so it goes from out to in. So we have the tha, we have the dhal and dha. This is from out to in, okay? What do I mean by that? So when I'm reading tha, I'm going to stick out my tongue the most. Tha, tha, f, f. When I'm, sorry. When I'm saying the dhal, it's going to be a little bit less. So it's going to be a little bit less. It's not going to be sticking out as much as the tha. Tha, tha. So it's not going to be tha, okay? Tha, rather a little bit less. Tha, tha. And the dha is even a little bit more. So it's going to be dha, dha, not dha. Okay? So not dha, but rather a little bit less. Dha, dhal, tha. So again, one more time. Out to in. Tha, dhal, dha. Dha, dhal, tha. Okay, so you want to make that note because this is not mentioned in the books, but this is something I took from my teachers when reciting to them. And this really makes a difference when you're reciting, okay? So when we get to the sifat, the qualities, you'll understand why you read it as such. Then we have the tip of the tongue above the lower central incisors, okay? So we have the 2 teeth here. You have the bottom teeth and the top teeth, right? The bottom teeth and top teeth. And the central incisors are the 2 teeth, right? So this is the bottom, this is top. The definition here, it says what? It says here above the lower central incisors. So above the lower, we have 3 letters, Sin, Za, and Sad. One more time. When you're saying Sad, do not round your lips and say Sad, Sad, that's wrong. Very common mistake. There should be no rounding of the lips, even partial. It should be Sad, Sad. And it's much more heavy and thick when you keep your mouth neutral, Sad, as opposed to Swad. You're actually diminishing or reducing the sound when you round your lips, okay? It should be neutral, Sad, Za, Sin. Okay, let's go back here. So this is Makhārij 14, between the tip of the tongue and both central incisors. So this definition here, if you see, it says both central incisors, right? And then it says there's a slight gap between the tongue and the teeth. So basically, this is your top teeth, this is your bottom, right? It's right in between. Your tongue is right in between, okay? It's a little bit above the bottom. So there's a little gap. So you're not actually pressing your tongue at the bottom teeth and saying thin. It's not going to happen, okay? I just want to clarify that because it's a common question I get. So you can say it's above the lower central incisors, but it's in between both, closer to the bottom, and not necessarily pressing the bottom teeth, okay? And this is basically, this page here combines everything, okay? So it's a good review page. And then we have the Makhārij number 15. So that now we're talking about the lips. So you have the inside, so this is your lip here. This is the outside of the lip, this is the inside, right? So closer to the tongue. The inside of the bottom lip when touching the edge of the upper central incisors. So it's touching the top 2 teeth, it's touching the bottom of the top 2 teeth, the edge of it. The Fa is pronounced from here. The Fa, like letter F. Okay, so here, the tip of the upper central incisors and the inner part of the lower lip. So the inner part. Okay, what did it say here? It said the inside. Okay, so you can say inner part or inside of the lip, that's fine. So if you look here, you have the inner part of the lip touching the edge or the bottom of the top teeth. Fa, like the letter F, right? This letter here, F. And there's a difference. Can someone tell you the difference between when we say Fa and F? Someone tell me the difference between F, just say it, F and Fa. What is the difference? Is anyone here? Or am I speaking to myself?
With F, we are pushing out from the slightly more, like from the edge of the mouth outwards. And with this, we're closing in on the mouth rather than pushing out. And we're also pushing in on a slightly more inner part of the lip, the bottom part of the lip as well.
Perfect.
But essentially, we're pushing in rather than pushing out as well.
Yeah, that's right. So basically, just to summarize, this one you're using the inner part, Fa, and when you're saying the F here, you're using the more of the outer lip, okay? F, Fa, there's a difference, okay? F and Fa. That's why it says inner part of the lip, so you don't confuse yourself. Both are opposite sounds. When you say opposite, maybe you're referring to like outer lip and inner lip, sure. But the F, it sounds quite similar to Fa, okay? But there is that difference, okay? Like if you say Fa'ida and Fa'ida, there's a difference there, okay? That's why it says inner lip, so just keep that in mind. And this is quite easy because it's common in a lot of other languages, which are similar to Arabic, right? Like Urdu, for example. Okay, then we have the Ash-Shafatan again, the lips, the meeting of the lips. Now, the meeting of the lips, there are 3 letters here. You have the wet part of the lips, you have the dry part of the lips, okay? So in this diagram, it's very, very similar. I mean, you barely know what's going on. So you have the wet part of the lips is the ba, the wet part, and the dry part is the mim. Now, obviously, what does wet mean? Wet just means it's closer to the tongue, so it's more wet, and dry means it's more outside, like the English fa, right? Mim. Okay, so you have the dry part is the meme, the wet part is the ba. And then we have the pursing of the lips without touching. So when you're saying the wow, right, you're not actually touching the lips together because you can't. Wow, you can't. So it comes together like this, kind of rounding, right? Wow. So this is the only letter you can say, maybe one of the only letters. When you read a fatha on it, you're gonna, the mouth is gonna come together like this a little bit. Wa. Okay. But when you're saying sa or sa or ta or la, it's going to remain neutral. When I say neutral, I mean that your lips should not round. I hope that makes sense. Because it's a very common mistake, and unfortunately, you know, if you look at some teachers on YouTube, you know, when they're reading it, they're clearly saying, you know, like flaw or mo, right? Which is incorrect. Your lips should be neutral when you're reading these letters. Okay, let's go back here. So you have the yeah. So let's read this here. So we did number 15, number 16. The meeting of the lips, the waw غير المادية, المادية, الواو غير المادية. Okay, meaning the waw which is not lengthened, because the waw which is lengthened comes from where? Can someone tell me? The waw which is lengthened comes from where?
From the jaw.
From the jaw. Thank you. Yes, like nuhiha. Perfect.
Empty space.
Empty space. Very good. So here the ba and meme come from. The ba comes from which one? The wet part of the lips. Meme comes from the dry part of the lips. So the waw غير المادية or غير المادية, which will either be متحركة or lean. Remember that, right? So the same as ya غير مادية. Okay. So متحركة, if you recall, it means it has a fatha dhamma kasra on it, like wa, we, wu. Or lean, meaning that there is a fatha before it and the waw has a sukun. So aw, okay, baw, taw. So that also comes from this makharij here, 16. The only waw which comes from the empty space is the lengthened waw, meaning it has the dhamma before it. It has to be ooh, okay? Because then you're not really reading it from this makharij here, right? Nu, hiha, nu. You're rounding the lips because of the dhamma, not because of the waw. So the waw is pronounced with the incomplete meeting of the lips in articulating the ba from the wet part and meme from the dry. The lips meet completely. Lips meet completely. Okay. I want you to pay close attention to that because later on we're going to cover something when we get to sifat. Okay. The khayshum, this is the final makhraj. It's the nasal cavity. Remember we had the oral cavity, the empty space here from the bottom of the throat all the way to the mouth. This is the nasal cavity. So the khayshum, the ghunna or the nasal sound comes from here. So the noon and meme, there is no way you can pronounce it without having this quality, right? The n sound. Try to plug your nose in, you can't. So the noon comes from the tip of the tongue, yes, but also it has a little bit of this khayshum or the ghunna sound intrinsically in the letters of the noon and meme. Okay, inside the noon and meme. Okay, that's it. MashaAllah, we finished all the letters. Alhamdulillah. I know we went through it quickly, okay? But there was a request that we want to finish within the 12 weeks, right? Although I'm not trying to rush it, inshallah, we're going to have enough time to, practice. We just need to pick up the pace. And it makes sense because the first few classes were a little bit slower. I mean, it was a new subject, and you're kind of getting used to how you're supposed to do it. So now, inshallah, you guys know how to practice, right? Page 100, I believe. Yeah, there. So if you recall, we were doing this, right? We were doing like sheen comes from the middle of the tongue, touching the roof of the mouth. Ha comes from the middle part of the throat. So now we're going to add on more letters here, okay? Not all at once, okay? But we're going to do the exercises. So we completed exercise 1 and number 2. We did the letters of the back and the middle of the tongue. So don't worry, we're not really rushing because we're going to do the exercises and take our time. And you will have, of course, enough time to practice over the week, inshallah. So now we're moving on to exercise number 3, which is the letters of the side and the tip of the tongue. What are the letters of the side of the tongue? Can someone tell me?
Dod.
Dod, that's one. What else?
Lam.
Lam.
Yeah.
Noon. Ro.
Dod. What about the tip of the tongue?
Noon, Ra.
Ba.
Okay, hold on. The bod is coming with me down. Okay, 4 letters. Okay, I just want to see. Okay, so don't worry about this. Okay, we're going to do the other letters like ta, ta, etc. because they also come from the tip, but we're using the gum line, remember? And the tip. So those are later. So we're going to do exercise 3, and this is quite simple. So I like this book. You know, it's very good exercises. So we're just focusing on the side. We have 2 letters. One more time. Okay, one more time. Do revision. We're using the side of the tongue, touching the molars, right? And it's extending. Lod. The lam is moving forward to the what is it, the tip of the mouth or the anterior part of the mouth. We're using the premolar. Okay, premolar to premolar. Lam. Then we have the noon from canine to canine. Noon. Okay, so we have the molars, premolars, canine, and then we have lateral incisors, which is the ra. Okay, I know it might be a lot to take in. But inshallah, once you're repeating it again and again, for those of you who have been attending the classes, you know how we do the lessons. So inshallah, by the time you're done the exercises, you'll be an expert. And the point of us doing this, right? I could have just easily said, go ahead and read. You know, just read here. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا. Oh, you made a mistake here. It's a ta. Don't round your lips. And then you read it again and again and again and again and again. Maybe you might improve 1 or 2. You know, maybe 5–10%. Okay, if you really dedicate it, maybe more, 50, 60, 70%. I don't know. But if you don't know where the makhraj comes from, you don't know how to articulate it, you don't know the quality of the letter, you're not really going to improve as much, you know. So if you understand the makhārij, where the letter comes out from, and you learn the quality of the letter, inshallah, you'll be able to correct yourself. Okay, and that's the end goal. So for those of you thinking, you know, well, this is quite boring. I didn't expect this to happen, right? What are we doing here? We're saying the ayn comes to the middle part of the throat, lam. But again, keep in mind that if you do this, you're going to really learn the makhārij very, very well, right? So, for example, I just completed, you know, this makhārij section in Sifat with some students, and you know, they were kind of finding it difficult. But once they finished, they thanked me and said, "MashaAllah, you know, this is a very good approach." Why? Because now 3, 4, 5 months later, maybe 2 or 3 years later, it's going to be stuck in their brain. But if I just went, you know, and said, oh, the lad comes from here, the lam comes from here, the noon comes from here, it may stick with you for a month, right? But then 1, 2 years later, when someone asks you, you'll be like, I don't know, the ta, does it come from the nose? I don't know, right? So inshallah, so you have to really participate in these exercises. Okay, this is very, very important, inshallah, if you want to move forward. Second thing, once we finish this book here, this is a short book, you know, we're taking our time, but it's very important. We're going to go through Makhārij, Sifat, the rules of Tajweed like Ikhfa, Idgham, Idhar, Iqlab. Some of you maybe, you know, some of you maybe know or already are familiar with these rules, or maybe even teachers, right? So inshallah, once we go through this book here, like the Mudud also, right? The Waqf. Then after that, inshallah, you can begin reciting the Quran. Okay, so inshallah, we hope that you know, there may be sessions further for recitation, right? So just like we're doing practice sessions here, then perhaps we can move on to an advanced book like Tuhfatul Atfal, and along with it, the practical aspect will be just reading. Okay, so you know, try to be patient. You know, obviously, learning anything it requires patience. You know, don't try to just, and it's like learning a language. If I were to tell you right now, go ahead and learn Chinese, right, or Japanese or whatever it is. You're not going to go and, you know, and rush through it. You're going to take one letter and practice it again and again and try to read it from its makhraj, basically, from where, you know, the letter comes out from. Okay. So it's the same thing. It requires time. The theory helps. Otherwise, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Feels like hit and miss. Exactly. I mean, I know people who are hufaz, they memorize the Quran, they have ijazah in the Quran. But when they're reading the Quran, they're making minor mistakes. And it's very simple. I asked them why. Where does this letter come from? The makhraj, they don't know. Okay, but they have ijazah in the Quran. So I sat with some of these students and I told them the makhraj comes from here. For example, ta, they were pronouncing it from the edge like a tha. They were saying ta, wet-teeny. So just minor corrections, and subhanAllah, within a week they were, you know, make big difference. They're making a big jump in their recitation. Okay, so very important to focus on this, try to learn it properly. Do we have any questions, inshallah?
Yeah, sorry, very quickly. So I'm assuming it's not a case of memorizing it. You know, the rules here, but it's expected that during the practice of it, you will internalize it. I'm assuming.
Yeah, so who is this? His brother?
Saleh.
Okay, mashallah, brother Saleh. So were you with us in our previous classes?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Okay, so you understand the approach how we're doing it, right?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Yeah, so when you're repeating the letter again and again, you're going to internalize it anyways, right?
On this tablet.
Once you, so there's another voice here. Can you mute that? I don't know who it is.
Yeah, so yeah, no, that's fine. What I was saying is, I suppose it is worth trying to memorize it as well, because that will only help, if anything.
Yeah, I mean, of course, look at it once, you know, say, okay, the kaf comes from the back part of the tongue touching the hard palate. Okay, now you're going to repeat this again here, kaf. It's going to come here, kaf. It's going to come again, kaf. You're going to say it again and again and again. So if you get stuck, the book is there. Go back to it and say, oh no, hold on. The jim, where does it come from? I forgot. Okay, it comes from the middle of the tongue touching the roof. Eventually, you're going to know it so well, you don't have to look at the book, right? That's the end goal. Like in the last class, I don't know if you were present, but mashallah, the students were, you know, amazing. You know,
Yeah, I was, yeah.
this very quickly, you're like, wow, comes from here, meme comes from here. And that's the end goal, right? So this will happen, right? Inshallah, to all of you, right? But the only condition is that you practice, obviously. Zoom user says, I've completed my tajweed about 20 years ago. Unfortunately, complete. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, yeah, very good. Yeah. So try to, you know, revise this. Inshallah, it should come back. Any other questions? Okay, we have 10 minutes here, inshallah. I would like us to start with exercise number 3, and we'll carry on next week, inshallah. Because alhamdulillah, we've completed the Makhārij. So maybe next class we'll do another quick revision of all the Makhārij, right? Revision. And this is how I like to teach as well. Always go back and revise, okay? So next class, inshallah, we'll have a quick revision of all the Makhārij, of everything we've learned. And then we'll go through exercises 3, 4, 5, and that's it, mashallah. Right? Just 3 exercises, and then inshallah we'll move on to sifat. Okay, so yeah. So let's go ahead and do the breakout room very quickly here in this last couple of minutes, and we'll start with exercise 3 at least, inshallah. Actually, you know what? Hold on a second. You know what? Let's get someone start this here, just so we can see how it's going to be. So we're focusing on the side of the tongue, lad and lam, and the tip of the tongue, okay? And also you're going to include the throat letters. Remember, don't forget those. You're always going to be adding on, okay? So the brother who asked about internalizing, you're gonna internalize it very well, because we're gonna add on, okay? So can I get a volunteer to start here? Maybe we won't even have the big breakout room. We'll just have a few, individuals go ahead, and the others can listen and see how we're doing it, inshallah. Yes, Sister Maryam, go ahead, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay then. Are we starting from kaf?
You're starting from kaf, correct? Because that was the previous, yeah.
Okay, kaf comes from the hard palate.
So back of the tongue touching the hard palate, good.
Lam comes from the side of the tongue touching the gums of the upper back molars.
From premolar to premolar, good. And then kaf again.
Kaf comes from the back of part of the tongue, hard palate.
Good, mashallah.
Jim comes from the center of the tongue touching the palate.
MashaAllah. Good. Ain.
Ain comes from the middle of the throat.
MashaAllah. Good. Lam.
Lam comes from the side of the tongue.
Good. From premolar to premolar. Good.
And
Noon.
Noon comes from the tip of the tongue.
From canine to canine. Okay. And lam again.
Kaf, is it?
Yeah, so you're right. Yes, there's a kaf. Yeah. So that's alif ja'alnakum. Kaf comes from?
Okay, kaf comes from back part of the tongue, hard palate.
Good.
Hamza comes from the bottom of the throat.
Inshallah. Good.
And ta comes from the up.
Yeah, we'll leave ta for now. Okay, lam.
Okay. Lam comes from the side of the tongue,
From?
molar to molar.
Good. Kaf?
Kaf comes from the back part of the tongue, hard palate.
Good, mashallah. The waw here?
A waw, that is waw ghayr madiyya.
Good. So it comes from?
Jawf.
Good, mashallah. Then we have the noon.
Noon comes from the tip of the tongue.
Good. Extending from?
Extending with waw ghayr madiyya.
No, the noon. So from the tongue, it stretches from canine to canine, right?
Canine to canine.
Good.
Okay.
Sheen?
Sheen,
From the middle of the tongue?
sheen comes from the middle of the tongue, touching the roof.
Very good. Ha?
Ha comes from the bottom of the throat.
Good. Hamza?
Hamza comes from the bottom of the throat.
Actually, before there's the alif, comes from the?
Alif comes from the emptiness of the mouth.
Very good. Ain?
Ain comes from the middle of the throat.
Lam?
Lam comes from the molar to molar.
Good. Side of the tongue, molar to molar, premolar to premolar. Good. Noon?
Noon comes from the canine to canine, tip of the tongue.
Very good, mashallah. Okay, yeah.
Ya comes from the middle of the tongue, touching the roof.
Good. Kaf?
Kaf comes from the back part of the tongue, a hard palate.
Good. And the stretch waw?
Waw ghayr madiyya.
So this is waw, madiyya, right? The stretch waw comes from?
Waw madiyya.
The empty
Jawf.
space. Okay. Noon?
Noon comes from the tip of the tongue, canine to canine.
Ra?
Ra comes from the
So it's the tip of the tongue and the top. So the tip of the tongue as well as the top, touching the roof, okay? From so lateral incisors. Or you can just say the tip and the top of the tongue touching the roof of the mouth. That's fine as well. Okay. And then the waw, stretched waw comes from? Al-jawf.
waw madiyya jawf.
Lam?
Lam comes from the tip of the tongue, touching the palate.
The lam is from the side of the tongue, touching from premolar to premolar. Okay. Ain?
Ain comes from the middle of the throat.
Good. Lam?
Lam from the side of the tongue,
Premolar to?
premolar to premolar.
Okay. The ya here?
Ya comes from the middle of the tongue, touching the roof.
This is ya ghayr madiyya. Okay, good. Kaf?
Okay, kaf comes from the back part of the tongue, hard palate.
Good. Sheen?
Sheen, sheen comes from the middle of the tongue, touching the roof.
Good. Ha?
Ha comes from the bottom of the throat.
Good. The stretch ya?
Ya madiyya jawf.
Very good. How old are you, Sister Maryam?